Okay, good evening, everybody. I make that 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for logging on for the options information presentation. My name is James Harris. I'm in charge of Year 9 and I'm going to be one of the presenters. Shortly, I'll be handing over to my colleague Rob Hardy, our assistant head, who is standing a socially distant away from me with sanitised hands, ready to get onto the keyboard to go through some of the more technical aspects of the options information presentation. Just before we do get started, I want to say a massive thank you on behalf of Corfhill School for everything you have done to support your child's learning during this situation that we are in. I think, though, the whole school thinks that Year 9 and all of our students have adapted superbly to the situation, to working from home. But I know that for every student that has been logging on to Teams lessons, getting their work done at home, there has been a parent who has been encouraging, making sure they get out of bed, dare I say it, nagging them to make sure that they are doing their work and completing everything that they should be. So thank you for, I know everyone's circumstances are different, but thank you for any support you have been able to give your son or your daughter with their learning during this time. Just a little thing before I get started into the real part of the presentation. Everything that we're doing here is being recorded. It is about 90% similar to the presentation that me and Mr. Hardy did for the students earlier on today. And also all the information that we go through in today's presentation will be available on our website, so please don't feel that you have to be diligently taking notes as we go through this. Okay, let's make a start properly. Your son or daughter may have a very, very good idea of what they want to do in the future. They have a career path mapped out. They may not have no idea of what they want to do in the future. They may know what they want to do for their options now and post 16. Again, they may have no clue, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. One thing I will say, if you do have a son or daughter who seems like they have a set career path that they want to go on, experience tells me that they very often change their mind on this. So although that's a good thing if they're thinking about what they want to do in the future, it's not necessarily something to be fixated on. And equally, if they don't know what they want to do for their options, if they don't know what they want to do in the future, that is perfectly and utterly normal, and that's something that we try to emphasize to the young people that we spoke to today. Okay, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about the options process. Okay, and this is making decisions on what the year group will be studying in years 10 and year 11. Now, for some students, it may seem a little bit daunting making those decisions, but we've tried to emphasize the positive on this, in that they will be able to tailor their curriculum to suit their strengths, the subjects they enjoy, and make it right for them. And that's got to be a really positive thing. We encourage the young people to be thinking about what they're good at in terms of their subjects and thinking about what they enjoy. There will be an onus on them. They will have more time in school doing these subjects, and there will be a greater expectation during year 10 and year 11 to do more work outside of the classroom. It just goes without saying, if they enjoy that subject, then that's going to make that a heck of a lot easier. So those are things that we are encouraging them to think about. We would think about how they like to learn. Some subjects are very practical, some subjects are less so. And also how the subject is assessed. the vast majority of subjects are assessed in an exam-based way, but some subjects do have high amounts of coursework in terms of their content, and we would encourage the Year 9 to be finding that out about the subject before they decide which subject they wish to do. We would be encouraging students to have a balance of their curriculum. Now, Mr. Hardy's going to explain a little bit more about something called the EBAC route, but having a balance to their curriculum, having a little bit of variety, we feel is a good thing, and experience tells us that is a very good thing for the young people as well as they progress through the school, because it is very much in Year 10 and Year 11, it's a stepping stone. Young people have to be in education or training up until 18, and the choices they make now are stepping stones for what they are going to go on to do in the future. We would be encouraging you to have conversations with your son or daughter, if you haven't already done so, about these options, okay? Encourage them to talk to tutors and subject teachers. Now this, if you're thinking about how can I support my child through this process, this is one definite way. If they do have a question, a query that they're not sure about, you're not sure about the answer, you've looked on the website and you're still not 100% sure, please, please, please do encourage them to send an email to their tutor or their subject teacher to find out a little bit more information. Now that's one thing that might just be a tiny bit trickier in the situation that we're in, whereas in school they go and speak to that member of staff. At the moment, obviously we can't do that, but please get them to drop the relevant member of staff an email. Okay, we would be encouraging that, especially to teachers of new subjects. Now, by that I mean subjects such as business studies or health and social care, which they haven't had experience of before. And if they want to do that subjects, finding out as much as they possibly can, taking ownership of and responsibility of this process is something we would be wanting them to do. Okay, so we're encouraging the year group, they've got to make the decisions for themselves. We don't want them to be doing what their friends are doing. Okay, it's down to them. They have to live with them for 2 years. Changing things in Year 10 is incredibly difficult. So they shouldn't be making subject choices on what their friends are doing, if for no other reason, in that when it comes to timetabling, the chances are that they may well not be with their friends. And also, they may be really enjoying a subject because of the staff member that's teaching them. That happens naturally. But we would ask them to try and detach themselves from the subject teacher, but think about the subject as a whole, because we would not be able to tell you at this stage who would be teaching your son and daughter in that respective subject in Year 10 and Year 11. So trying to think about whether it's the subject that they enjoy rather than the teacher. So we'll be encouraging both your son and daughter and yourselves to try and find out a little bit more information about the various subjects, and we hope that we've been able to provide you, a really good amount of information on this. So course details are on SharePoint, that's on the school website. Students should have logins for anything that they need. If there's any problems with that, just get in contact with the school. So on there, it will give you full details of each course and the contact details for the subject leaders. So if there's a question that you might have for geography, it will have the geography subject leaders contact details there. And you'll be able to navigate your way to a screen that looks a little bit like this. And on there are all the subjects that are on the option blocks. And if you wanted to find out about art, you'd be able to click on the art button. On there, there'll be lots of information, videos about art, telling you everything that you need to know about that subject. If you want to find out the difference between PE GCSE, okay, and Cambridge National Sport, you'll be able to click on those and it will tell you. So that is something that I would be encouraging you and your son or daughter to go onto to find out a little bit more about the different things we have to offer. Okay, shortly I will be passing over to Mr. Hardy, who will be explaining a little bit more about the process that you'll need to go through on this, the technical side of things. Login details, all the students should have that, but again, if there's a problem, let us know. Subject consultation evening tomorrow, that's a really good time to speak to staff about subject choices. We hope that goes well. If you still have questions, we are very limited in terms of time on the subject consultation evening. Okay, if you still have questions for members of staff, or if for whatever reason you weren't able to arrange an appointment, please do take the opportunity to email staff any questions that you might have. When you've had a look at the options information, you're reflecting at the end of this presentation, you think actually we no longer need an appointment. Your son or daughter's come home today and said, look, I've really thought about it and these are my choices. With many teachers, there is a waiting list. So if you don't need a particular appointment, please cancel. But for no reason, please don't do that if you are still wanting that appointment with the member of staff. So the whole process, options have to be submitted by the end of Friday, the 26th of February. So we've got a bit of time, and that process for students to make their decisions, to find out the information so they can make informed choices for their future. Okie doke, that's it from me. I'm going to be passing on now to Mr. Hardy.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Rob Hardy, I'm assistant head here. It's my job to work with all these option box and curriculum and timetable and all the fun jobs that I very much enjoy, but other people don't enjoy as much as me. Let's talk a little bit about what they don't get a choice over. So first of all, there are a core offer that all students do. So English language and English literature, they take 2 GCSEs in that, all our students, and they're taught over 10 hours. And it's kind of taught as one subject, but obviously those huge links are forged between the 2 courses. Maths, they'll have 8 hours of maths, and again, it's a course that they have to take, and they'll be entered at one of 2 tiers, and that will be either foundation or higher, where they can achieve certain grades. And all this kind of information we will bring back to you, but it's worth considering at this point. Science is the one that's a little bit different in all this, because all science have to do what's called combined science, sometimes called double science, where you get 2 GCSEs for studying a smaller amount of content, not much smaller to be honest, but in terms of each of the 3 courses, biology, chemistry and physics. Triple is the option that they get to pick, and that is getting a full GCSE, separate GCSE in biology, chemistry and physics, and that is one of the options within the block. And just like the maths, that would be tiered, and both the triple and the double are tiered subjects. So they would, over the course of year 10 and 11, be decided what tier was more appropriate for them. It's worth also pointing out, especially this important time, PE has 2 hours per fortnight, so 1 a week generally, of PE, which is really important for the well-being of students as well as just their physical well-being. To revisit that triple science, it is one of those options that does have a really defined route going off for this. So if your child wants to go into veterinary science or medicine, it really is the best preparation for A-level science, which is then needed for those subjects. And it is also worth saying that it doesn't directly mean that you will do higher or foundation. It shouldn't just be, it should be for their interest in science more than anything else that they would pick that route. But that is one to consider. We are very lucky to try and keep our range of subjects as broad as possible. And as you can see from the list on screen, there are a number of subjects and a number of creative and practical and applicable subjects, and we have different types of courses in most of those faculties as well. It is Worth saying that our general options are on the screen. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. But these are all GCSE courses, and they will be given as a GCSE. And as Mr. Harris was saying before, the vast majority have a high exam-based content for those courses. There are some of them that also have coursework or controlled assessment elements, but each of those courses and those real nitty-gritty details about the courses are on both the website and the SharePoint areas, which have that information we've checked and updated this year. We also offer different vocational courses, and I say vocational, they are still very academic courses, all of them, and we've picked them very carefully as ways that we think that we can help students onto good careers. What I would say really is important, that is, I am not the expert explaining the difference here. So what is the difference between Hospitality and Catering Vocational Award and the Food and Nutrition GCSE? That's where we've got a subject specialist who knows about those subjects and can give you the better advice. And that's why the short videos that are on the SharePoint area and the written information hopefully will help you advise your child in the best way of those choices. We do have a couple of principles here that we do work by, and the first one was alluded to. We believe in a broad and balanced curriculum for our students, and that means, as well as that core offer we've just spoken about, we do ask that all students do at least one of French, geography, history or Spanish. And that's because we believe that no student should be just focusing down one route. So no student should just be going on to creative subjects. No student should be just going on to scientific subjects. And therefore, we try and make sure all students, by taking one of those 4 subjects, keep that broadness to their overall learning, which is really important for young people. Partly the reason those subjects were chosen is that it is this, I'd say qualification, but it's not quite, this award which is called the English Baccalaureate. Now, to speak about this, is made up of subjects which were considered essential to many degrees and open up a lot of doors. What they looked at, they did some research, and basically it says it increases the likelihood that people will stay on in full-time education if they've done the English Baccalaureate of qualifications. Now, it's a government target to increase the amount of students taking it, and at Corfe Hills we've built into that by ensuring all students take either a humanity or a language, that this is something we take very seriously. The English Baccalaureate itself is made up of English, maths and the sciences, and both geography or history and a language. So you have to do one humanities subject and one language at least. And that is seen as an enabling thing for students to do. But speaking very candidly, it's not the right decision for all students. It is a balance between having a broad curriculum and being all pushed into one route. And so we don't enforce that students take that. We do suggest it is a good route for students, and it does give that lovely broad and balanced curriculum overall. But we do focus on choice. So we wouldn't say that all students need to do both, but that is called the English Baccalaureate. But you don't get a certificate for that. That isn't an award. It's not like a GCSE certificate. It is just a collection of subjects that show a broad and balanced curriculum. And it's worth really having that conversation about what are the right subjects for your child, rather than just focusing on this route. For a lot of students, it is the right route, and it is a good route to have a look at, a set of subjects to study. Now, alongside that, as well as the subjects that we'd encourage them to take, and that idea that they need to take one of the 4 subjects, the language and humanities, there are certain combinations that we don't allow students to take, and these are largely because of the similarities between the courses offered. So, for example, doing both PE and Cambridge National Sport would mean that actually that's a lot of sport courses and is overly specialised at this stage. So we don't encourage that, and we don't allow students to take that. And the other ones in that list there that you can see are all courses where the content or the techniques used or the way it's assessed would mean that you wouldn't have enough difference in those courses to make it a good set of choices for a young person. As I say, they're worth looking back on, and where Mr. Harris mentioned earlier that this is all recorded and we'll share the presentation, this could be something to look at after the options have been picked, just to check that you haven't got one of those combinations in there. This is the bit that gets most technical, but actually isn't as difficult as hopefully it seems. Now, we do our options via Sims, so it's the Sims option, and students will get, and parents will get an email explaining this on Wednesday when it opens. Now, what you do basically is through the link, they have to log on using your Sims logon, which you will have set up maybe using the parent app or the parent pay option, and you can look at the options that your child has picked, and they get to pick the options. And I'm going to go through that process in quite a lot of detail. What it's worth saying, there's some bits of it that are a bit difficult. Now, one of those is that on the student one, it will say there's a parental approval button that they can't use. And you can do on your parents app, you can approve their options, but you don't need to. It's something that they've built into the system that all parents have to approve their options, but we don't ask for that at Caulfields because it's an extra step that's not needed. They'll be available for that period of time on screen. It's worth saying that's the rest of this week and the first week back, and hopefully it gives a point of reflection time. What can sometimes be is that you could put them in on, say, the 10th, say you've got a really good decision with your child tomorrow, and then are happy to put it in Wednesday. We won't shut that until the 26th. So if there's any reflections over half term or in that first week back, but that's the point where we'd shut and then review what's there. It is all careful instructions, but if you have any issues, do email the school. Specifically, there's an email on there. Our admin department, admin and data team really will help you if you have any issues on this. And I know that because we've gone through a similar process just with year 11, and they're super supportive to make sure students know what they're doing. There is guidance on these, and obviously a lot of this is the guidance that I've just gone through with them, but it's always worth making sure that your child understands and has read carefully. We do try and make it clear, and there are consistent messages coming out throughout. When they get onto the options screen, each block will look like this, and there are 4 blocks, block A, B, C and D, and they need to pick one from each block and one only. What we'd suggest here is that at the moment, these are what is the courses that are on offer in block A, and I might choose business. So that I've clicked on the actual business course, it's gone blue to show it's my choice. And if you see, it says in the top left corner, it says I've chosen one of one. Now, I might say actually in that block, if I couldn't do business, I'd actually be quite interested in doing French. And if you click the reserve, it will be that that's what you'd want to do. If you couldn't do the business course, if there were too many numbers on it, or we'll talk about some of those situations a bit more in detail. It does let you click more than one box, but when you do that, it shows you that you've chosen too many with that exclamation mark in the top corner. So if I chose hospitality and business in that same box, it's going to not let me submit that in the end and not let me save my options. Now, again, any technical help, once you get in, the important bit is to put the options in the right places and then click save. And again, these reminders, if a student has forgotten to do that, we can come in and remind them afterwards because we want to make sure we get all this information from students. It's worth saying triple science, which is on offer in A and B. I've forgotten to put option. It's also an option A. Again, that's the one that we need to make sure we pick it in the right blocks. It says there it's also available on option A. But triple science was that one we discussed before. Now, our current blocks look like this. And if I was, as a parent, going through anything with my child, this is a good way to do it. So this is on our website. It's under the 10-11 curriculum and then the option blocks for this year. And this is basically trying to get them to focus which subjects are they going to pick and in which blocks they're going to pick them. Now, what is clear, you may notice from this, is that sometimes a subject appears in more than one block, generally due to their popularity. And that can mean that the combinations of subjects can often fit in different ways. And we absolutely try to make as many combinations fit as possible to make sure that our staffing and our school is providing for your children as well as we possibly can. This is our initial block allocation. And if we suddenly get a huge amount of interest in a subject and we need to try and put on an extra class of it, we will. And this is where we review the blocks after I'll just come back to that one. We'll review the blocks after everything's submitted to see if it's the right picture for each year group. And quite often there can be small tweaks here and there based on the new year group we've got. When they finish putting their options in, I'll come back to some of what happens next. They'll have a list of choices, one from each block, but also preferably a list of reserve subjects. They need to have at least one reserve, but then 2 or 3 would be probably plenty, just so that if we can't give the options, the first choice options, we can look at what else they're interested in and hopefully give them a set of courses that they are happy to proceed on. That appears lower down the page when we're going through it. Now, the things that students forget to do, and often where we have to go back to them at options, are quite simple. They forget to press save at the top of the screen, which then lets their options get translated to us. Or they forget to choose one of those 4 subjects we discussed before that we want all students to take: French, geography, history, or Spanish. It is worth saying you can always add a comment at the bottom of the form if you need to. So that could be a situation where you say, actually, the real combination they want to do is this, but it's not possible within the block. So they wanted to do these 2 subjects that are only available in block B, for example. And if you let us know that, again, we can review those comments, and that's where we can see where are we providing the right curriculum for our students. The deadline for submitting options is Friday, the 26th of February, but that is the point of where we review all this information. So on Monday, the 1st of March, we'll make sure that as many students as possible, all students have submitted, and then we'll generally offer most of them first choices, as much as possible that would be. But if we have no interest in the course, it may not be viable for us to run this, and we'll talk to the individual students if that is the case, and say sometimes the option blocks change to allow more students to get their first choice combinations. But after we've done those changes, after we've reviewed the blocks, then any subject changes after that are very difficult, because it might be I can't have any more students in that subject. That's why it's really important that we get students as well informed as possible in this first stage. The only other thing I would say is there are some special cases, and each of you may have specific questions that you want to ask. If they're overall ones, please feel free to email me. So if they're about anything in the presentation, and my name's Rob Hardy, so it's rhardy@caulfields.net. But what I'd also say is that there are certain individuals. So if your student have been working with Miss Ratcliffe, you might want to contact her if she may have contacted you about the option choices. And there are different situations for each individual student. What I'd say overall, this is a really positive process because it helps students start to think about what kind of subjects they like, what they want to do, and it starts that journey of, to be honest, why I came into teaching, is that the pathways we want to set students up on are the ones that lead to somewhere really successful in the future, whatever that will be. Hopefully with this information here and the videos and written information we've supplied on the website, we'll be able to inform students as well as possible to have the right choices for them. And as I hope I've explained to you, we then do everything possible to match this offer to make sure that as many students as we possibly can get their first choice options. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully that's got lots of ideas buzzing around in your head. And as I say, do contact us if you've got any questions. But at this point, I will say goodbye and enjoy a nice evening. Thank you very much.